For the first time in his career, Damian Lillard could be on his way to a brand new NBA franchise this offseason. A few weeks ago, it was reported that Lillard had requested a trade from the Portland Trailblazers and felt slighted over how their management lied to him. This is exactly what we're going to be discussing here today because there is no bigger name available in the trade market right now than the All-Pro guard. Now, first things first, Lillard is all about loyalty. If he wasn't, he would have easily left the Blazers years ago when they were stuck in mediocrity. However, he chose not to. He continued to make a point each year that this was where he wanted to play. The only thing that he asked for in return for his loyalty was transparency and an ability to compete for a championship. He wanted this team to make moves in order to get better each year. This meant them being active in free agency, working the phone lines to get newer players off the trade block, and making the most of their draft picks. Unfortunately, it seemed like every time Lillard asked this, management went in a different direction. In the past few years, Portland refused to shake up the market and splash a big-name free agent, nor did they make a big trade. In fact, they were getting worse each year. They traded a high-potential shooting guard in Gary Trent for a one-year deal with Norman Powell, which doesn't even make sense in hindsight because Powell was just another guard for a lineup that had trouble defensively. Powell then signed a big contract with the Blazers to avoid the trade being useless, but Powell was traded again anyways for next to nothing. Even if they had kept Powell for the money he signed for, he would have eaten a massive chunk of their cap space for the same or less production than CJ McCollum. Speaking of McCollum, the team also traded him and got minimal returns for his services. Then in free agency, the biggest name the team inked was Jeremy Grant, and they just re-signed him for way more than what his projected contract was valued at before the offseason began. It just feels like every move this team makes contradicts the other. Lillard has clearly grown frustrated with the back and forth and put his foot down. However, these smaller lies of improvement weren't the final straw. Dame had enough when he found out about the team getting the number 3 overall draft pick in the lottery. He quickly met with management to discuss his future and role with the organization, as well as discussing what they might do with the draft pick. Lillard politely requested that they trade the pick along with their other first-round selection to try and get another all-star player to make this team competitive, and that if they weren't willing to do that, he would request a trade. In the days leading up to draft night, it felt realistic that the team would ship that pick away. However, Portland surprised him by drafting Scoot Henderson and then taking it one step further by taking Chris Murray with their second first-round pick. This was the moment that Lillard had enough and asked for a trade now that he knew the team wanted to rebuild. It should be mentioned though, Scoot Henderson and Chris Murray have great potential to be stars in this league. The Blazers got tremendous value in these selections, but it was just too little too late for them and Lillard. So when Dame requested the trade, he told management that he would only play for the Miami Heat. He didn't want to join a team that had just recently won a championship and wanted to help take a championship-ready team to the finals and win it with them. Miami had made the NBA Finals multiple times in the past few years and hadn't won a ship, so this was the perfect fit. Weeks start to go by and there isn't any traction on a deal for Lillard's services. Miami very clearly didn't have the trade capital available to give Portland what they wanted, but the team was adamant that they weren't going to sacrifice their talent for nothing, even if it would have given Dame what he wanted after providing the city with so much effort and hope. It was a bad look for the team at first, though you could absolutely understand the decision from a business perspective. Lillard, on the other hand, couldn't feel more betrayed. He gives all that he has to a team that consistently screwed him over when it comes to making moves. Then when he finally decides that he wants to go to a specific team, management won't even do it. Now, it's looking like a trade might happen elsewhere. A report came out stating that Lillard wouldn't play for another team besides the Heat, which immediately let other teams know that they shouldn't even try to get him. It also gave the Heat quite a bit of leverage in trade talks. That statement apparently didn't go over well because the NBA sent out a warning to Lillard for refusing to play unless being sent to Miami. This now opens the door for him to be sent anywhere that the Blazers choose, and they could absolutely lie to him one more time and send him somewhere he doesn't want to be if they wanted to. If he doesn't get sent to the Heat, it would be another slap in the face for him. It would also likely push other free agents away from Portland after watching what they did to their superstar player who stayed with them through it all. Management in Portland knows that they have a big decision to make and yet are choosing to do absolutely nothing about it. It's been over a month and a half since the request was made, and zero progress has happened. Honestly, it seems like Portland is beginning to expect him back in the lineup for the start of the season, which won't be happening. Lillard hasn't been able to play with another All-Star since 2015 when he got LaMarcus Aldridge. I find it hard to believe that they can sell him on another season with two rookies that haven't played at the NBA level yet. They're going to have to do a lot more to change his mind, but they aren't doing that. We mentioned that Portland refuses to put talent around Dame on this team, and it's true. McCollum and Yusuf Nurkic were the two best players Portland had in the past 7-8 years behind Lillard. No offense to either of those guys, but you probably aren't winning a championship with those two being your second and third best options. Not to mention that they were receiving a ridiculous amount of money considering their production on the floor. Other than these two, Portland just keeps stop-gapping positions and hopes that their problems will go away. They signed guys like Robert Covington, Carmelo Anthony, Matisse Thybulle, and most recently, Jeremy Grant. These are players that don't change the upside for their roster and just further keep them in mediocrity until they get a big-name star. But let's take a moment to think about the possibilities of this trade working out. Let's say that the Blazers do ship Lillard to Miami. The Heat immediately become championship contenders again. Yes, they did lose a few key free agents in the offseason, but they still have Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Not to mention that their culture and coaching staff is arguably the best that the NBA has to offer. Lillard would fit right in and provide the scoring boosts that this defensive-minded team has needed for the past few years. Plus, it's not hard to envision the Heat developing another undrafted rookie to a potential higher than anybody else expected. We've seen that with so many players from their roster, including two guys that just got big contracts this year in Max Strus and Gabe Vincent. So, Miami would feel great about any assets they would lose just to give it one more go at a championship. Meanwhile, Portland would feel great about their spot as well. They finally get to restart and rebuild without any pressure to make themselves a championship-ready roster. Maybe they lost Lillard for less than they want, though they can still net very positive returns. Early expectations are that they obtain multiple first and second round draft picks on top of a guy like Tyler Hero. Hero could also be flipped in a 3-team trade for more assets if Portland feels confident in their backcourt. Then on top of that, Portland might ask for the Heat's new rookie first-rounder, Jaime Jaquez. All of these assets on top of the bright future with players like Scoot, Murray, Shaedon Sharpe, and Anthony Simmons makes this Blazers team one of the more exciting teams in the league. Blazers fans would finally feel confident that they are heading in the right direction, and they would be able to simultaneously give their star player the trade he deserves into a good situation to potentially win it all. Personally, this trade feels like it's gotta happen now because if it doesn't, it's going to be a bad look for each party. Let us know in the comments below if you think this deal will actually take place before the season starts. Can the Blazers pull themselves together and provide Lillard with an opportunity to win a ring? It'll look 10 times worse if he does get traded, but not to the Miami Heat. We touched on this earlier, but just imagine giving all that you have to a team to keep them competitive, and they decide to ignore all of your final requests to send you to one of the worst teams in the league. Some sources claim that Lillard could be shipped over to the Detroit Pistons. Yes, those Pistons. The Pistons that haven't had a playoff success in nearly a decade. The Pistons that have been one of the worst teams in the league for the past 5 years. If Lillard gets traded somewhere like Detroit where there is absolutely no chance of winning a ring, the Blazers will have a lot to answer to. Not just from other players and media that are confused, but also to the fans that don't understand why they screwed over a guy who is a lot of people's favorite player. Let's just hope that Lillard and the team can come together one more time and get this all figured out. Because there isn't much time left before the new season begins, and neither party wants to be dragging their feet out any longer than they need to be. Lillard is losing precious time waiting around, while management is sitting there focusing on him rather than committing to their own future and rebuilding with a generational talent in Scoot Henderson. That's all for today. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and thank you for watching. If you enjoy this kind of NBA content, please be sure to like, subscribe, and click to watch this next video.